Here we go.
Get lamp. With Jeffrey Lampkin.
Everybody get up. Say what? Everybody get up. Come on.
Lamp. With Jeffrey Lampkin. Motivation, inspiration, educated new revelation. Lamp. With Jeffrey Lampkin.
Entertainment just for you. Smile and laugh, 'cause God loves you.
Get lamp. With Jeffrey Lampkin.
Somebody turn the lamp on.
Good morning, it's time. It's the Jeffrey Lampkin Show. Listen, I am super excited this morning. I am so happy, and I'm so excited that you all are just joining me every Sunday morning at 8:30, and all of the love that I'm receiving in the community. I've just had the opportunity to be here, there, around the square, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So thank you all so much for all of your love and support. I want to give a shout out to Utahville, Santee, and the Brother Larry Clark and his group over there in Santee. I had the opportunity to worship and fellowship with them. Absolutely wonderful, phenomenal choir. Of course, if you don't follow me on Facebook, follow me on Facebook, Jeffrey Lampkin. Of course, I have no more room for friends, but I have room for followers. So join me and just enjoy the experience. But I did get to post a video for them that I know blessed a lot of people. So we thank God for that. Listen, I hope that you're enjoying part one as you did on last week of Black Lives Matter, South Carolina and Ferguson, and that live show. And of course, today you're going to enjoy part two of it. But I also wanted to share with you, because of course, this is the holiday season. Remember that Jesus is the reason for the season, and that everything that you have and everything that you do is because of him. And I ask that you come and you celebrate with me. On this morning, I'm going to be at the New Hope Missionary Baptist Church in Lancaster, South Carolina. So for all of my viewers up there in Winsboro and Great Falls, come fellowship with me this morning at 10 a.m. It's going to be a wonderful time, Christmas at the Hope. And then this evening, I'll be at the Talkall Missionary Baptist Church in Somerton, South Carolina. Reverend Dr. W.T. Johnson and First Lady Johnson, along with Sister Ollie Canny and Brother Terrence Tyndall in the choir. I'm going to be there worshiping with them as we celebrate the King. And then I am super excited because I'm going to be with Pastor Delbert and First Lady Singleton on Tuesday, the 23rd, at the Green Hill Missionary Baptist Church. And that's actually going to be at 6 p.m. I am super excited about it. It's going to be Christmas at the Hill, like you've never experienced before. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. So I want you all come out, be a part. That's going to be in Alcaloo, South Carolina. And finally, we're going to end the journey on the 24th, that evening in Manning, South Carolina. Let it sting. I think a lot of times we try to soften the blow. We say Caucasian, African American, and we use things like that. Black, white man killed black kid. And then not only did the white man kill the black kid, but how long did it take before the police got out there? How long did the body lay out there? Do we not remember? Do we remember the story? So how did it make you feel? Are you, as young people, do you feel safe? Because we got a lot of college students. Do you feel, yes ma'am? Stand up.
Hi guys. Well, actually, I grew up here. I lived in right across the street from Lanham Manor. So I do not feel safe, no. As y'all were stating before, yeah, we always see that it's always confrontation between our own race, but even social media-wise, I kind of feel like that's our outlet of getting it out and kind of doing something about it, but we're not really being active about it. Like, we're not really out there like, hey, like, are you really paying attention? Do you really see what's going on? We're talking about it, but are we really doing something about it? And what are we going to do about it?
Really doing something about it. Anybody can tweet. Anybody can Instagram. That's what people do. When the verdict came out, everybody has something to say. And tonight, when you tell them to come out, and I wonder, because my friend, they're doing something over at the University of South Carolina as well, and shout out to Cortland Connects and all of them over at the University of South Carolina. They're having an event on tonight. So my question becomes, are we really making a difference? Are we taking action to what is happening? Panel?
Well, here's my biggest issue about it. Brother, you quoted scripture, so I'm going to go ahead and put one out there. A house divided cannot stand. Here we are on one side of town having an event, and then there's another one on the other side of town.
Very much so.
In a city called Columbia. This is not New York. It's not that big that you have different marches, different events on one night. It's the same song and the same rhetoric that goes on with the churches. You said it great. You said it great. We are a house divided that cannot stand. So therefore, when it's time to get the vote out, when it's time to rally, when it's time to pull together the resources of the churches, we always divided. And you know why? Because we lack courage. Here's something I can tell anyone, everybody. People don't follow leadership, they follow courage. And what we're missing in our community is courage. Courage enough to stand together, courage enough to fight together instead of just being dissolved in our own community. When we stand divided, we'll never get anything to conquer. But if we were able to just literally put ourselves in the same fight together, because we're actually divided in two fights right now, socialism and capitalism. We're having a socialism platform everywhere. And you said it right. Social media is part of it. We can put it out there, and guess what? It'll get a buzz for a minute, but there's nothing happening after that. No social action programs, no response to it. Then you can put a capitalism program out there, the one that Martin talked about right before he got assassinated, the one he spoke about when he became a threat to the nation, when he said we came to get a promissory note, and we deserve a return on what we were supposed to get. That's when he became a threat. But how many of us, because we didn't want to support, no dime spent, not one dime spent, went out there and bought a 42-inch TV? Say it again. Now, I told people, and I argue this, and this is part of a healthy debate, because we need to make sure we have some type of discussion about actions going forward. This was only an exercise. Let me show you what an exercise is. Taking an old woman who has worked all day and putting her on the front of the bus and name her and letting her name go across the screen with her ID because she sat on the front of the bus and refused to get up. That was an exercise for the leadership to show courage. Before the leadership can show courage, Rosa Parks had to be exercised. What I'm asking is, what is our exercise? Because we've had a crucifixion. We had a child killed in the street. The question is, what is our exercise going forward, Jeffrey? Because when we look at what are we going to do that should be sustainable behavior, meaning something that's going to continuously go forward. Does that mean we're going to have mentor programs at the high school that is next to us where there's a low graduation rate? Are we going to establish a debate club where we can help people learn about the power of vote? Will the churches come together? Will the pastors even have breakfast? No, let's don't wait till MLK weekend to put on our big old
and
coats
Black History Month
and come together and speak and have breakfast and march. Let's do it tomorrow. Let's do it today, and not just today. Do it every weekend until something changes. I'll say this and I'll be quiet. Columbia has come a long way, but we got so much further to go. If you look at your municipalities, your organizations, the power of the vote has turned out, and it's turned out favorably to put ourselves in a position where we can help ourselves, where we can put people in positions where critical issues may come, Jeffrey, and we can take rightful action. But guess what? The vote went back. And the progress can soon become digress. And so we need to work on that.
There was a question in the audience.
Do you guys think it matters if it's a level of class difference? If it was an adult such as yourself and the level that you are as a pastor, do you think it would have been a difference on the indictment?
I'm not sure, but we do know that the classism does play where he came from. When you look at where he was patrolling, it resonates with us today, because whether you come from Spring Valley or you come from Belvedere, you're still black. And at one time, whether I was from Greenview, and Brian was my teammate in high school, we went to Keenan High School, and when we was in the car, Brian wasn't in the car that night, but we was in the car of kids from Greenview, Meadow Lake, and Belvedere, 3 different classes. all of us got called the N-word.
I want to go real quick. We have
Jeffrey, let me comment on this right here, what Pastor Bishop said. And I have to agree with him as far as class. I mean, my son goes to Chapin High School, and it's a battle every day to be called the N-word, something that he has to go through not only on his football team, but also in the hallways and not reacting to it. So that's the lesson that he's learned, is try to keep it in. Don't say anything, because the time that he did release his anger, he was labeled as this angry black kid, when if anybody knows my son, he doesn't say much. You have to push him.
But have we done it to ourselves, Suber? Have we done it to ourselves as a society? Because when we walk in the door, what up, my? That's what we do.
Well, that's something, Jeffrey, that I had a discussion with him when he first went to Chapin, because I came from Mid Carolina High School, so, you know, that's a different beast in itself growing up. And even then, I was militant then, because before graduating, you were not going to put the Confederate flag on my invitation. So I was called to the principal's office for doing that. But, you know, even when I told my son when he first went there, coming from hometown Fairfield County, I said, look, you finna go into a different culture. And if you allow them to treat you some kind of way, they're gonna think it's right. So I had to, when I would hear him have these conversations, I was like, you don't allow anybody to do that, because now it's okay. And then when you get upset about it, it's a problem. So I think we've allowed a lot of things to go. Even as women, we've allowed even our men to degrade us. And those are issues that we need to touch upon. It's just not white people doing it. We do it to ourselves also. And nobody wants to sit back and say, hey, we're doing this to ourselves.
Derek, have we done it to ourselves? Have we justified the use of the N-word?
We have, and a lot of times we have white friends and we let them use the N-word too. And so I had a situation 2 weeks ago where a white girl called me a nigga. She, what's up, my nigga? And I didn't even know her like that. But because she hangs around black people, she feels as though she can use the word nigga. And I had to tell her, you can't call me that. You can call your friends that.
Poll right here real quick. How many of you raise your hands if you're okay with someone, if they're now, please be real. Please be real. How many of you are you okay if someone addresses you and be like, yo, what up, man? If they say that to you? Be honest. You're okay with it. If a black person says that to you, would you be okay with it? We talked about something tonight. We talked about being active. How are you making a difference? Because here's my thing. We can talk all night. We can talk about what happened with Mike Brown. We can talk about what happened with Trayvon Martin. We can talk about all these different things. How are you making a difference? How are you making a difference in our society now? And I want everyone on the panel to answer, but even in the audience, how are you truly making a difference in what has happened now? So Mike Brown happened about 2 weeks ago, the verdict that there was going to be no indictment. Tell me what you've done besides posted a meme on Instagram or Facebook that has really said, I want to make a difference. And let me share one thing with you. It doesn't matter how many people are going to join the bandwagon with you. The question is, what have you done? Can someone tell me something tangible that you have done? Think on these things. Go ahead.
Well, mentoring. I'm a mentor, so I got some young men that I mentor. And I just want to say this one quote. Misinformation can lead to a misconception on a lot of this stuff about black crime. We've been fed misinformation.
Yes, sir.
This goes back to the gentleman I was just talking about what we control and what we don't control media-wise. It comes right back to that. It's just saying what's coming out and what's not coming out. See, yeah, social media is one thing, but when you finish your statement, you said after you got your information from somebody, you had to go to your boss and tell them. So somebody had to say yes to something that's coming out. Because there's a lot of things. Chicago had 700-something murders last year. People was talking about that on social media every day, but wasn't nobody over in Chicago talking about how many people got killed. It's what they didn't make it to CNN, like Mike Brown. People get murdered in the streets every day. They don't make it to CNN. So that's what it's not. We're not controlling that part. And then, as far as what I'm doing, I have a show called Building Sessions with me and a good friend of mine, and we're doing actually just this past 2 weeks we just did two powerful panels about what's going on in Ferguson and also about the Black Friday boycott, no boycott. Correct. So that's what we're doing right now.
Taking action. What else? What are we doing? What are we doing? Action on the panel. There's one person. What are we doing? Derek, I know you've been out and about. Brian, go ahead.
I think the major difference in the eras is back when Rosa Parks with the bus boycott, they came together and devised a plan And as a result of that plan, they made it mobile. I think there are a lot of people who have social media, Facebook, Instagram, who pump faking. You know, you can be whatever you want to be on Facebook, Instagram, but most people don't put their feet on the ground. So I have no respect for you if you on Facebook day in and day out talking about what you're going to do, and I don't see you mentoring.
That's why, let me pause real quick. That's why I love all my pastors that are here tonight. Stand. Real quick, stand. I have marriage. I will come to your church all day. And there's one more that's coming. Nate Jefferson is on his way. But I have respect. Give him a hand. Come on. Give him a hand. Because that's putting action to what is taking place. We want people at our church, but what we're not doing, let me ask this, Will is an evangelist and pastor as well. Will is here tonight. Will, what made you come out? And speak of Nate Jefferson, and he walks in. Thank you so much, Pastor. How are you? God bless you. God bless you. Listen, real quick, Will, you're a pastor, a Caucasian pastor. Where are my African-American pastors? A Caucasian pastor is here tonight. Why? Why was it important enough? And you drove from Florence. Why?
I wanted to be educated about what's happened and actually hear about that face to face. I think that being a minister, and especially being a minister at Francis Marion, half of the student body is black. And so if I'm going to live up to the calling that Jesus has given me, I can't ignore the fear and the hurt that's happened to half the campus. And Rand's our chapter president with the ministry lead, and he came tonight on his own volition. I was actually surprised when he said he was going to come, but I wanted to step into that because I don't see white pastors stepping into that. And I think that that is an abdication of Jesus' calling to love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. And we're really, are we willing to lay our lives down? Are we willing to step into a heated conversation at Thanksgiving where Michael Brown becomes table talk? Are we willing to say things like, and just some things that people may mention, or things like, well, I think justice was served and things like that. Okay, great. Why did the prosecutor hold a trial instead of a grand jury session, right? Why won't we talk about that? Because I don't have an issue with saying that justice was served if justice was really served. But it becomes this kind of, it's almost like pop trivia or something when things like this come up, instead of really taking this seriously and saying, actually, Jesus is calling us to step into this. Me, just as a fellow human being, I'm called to step into this. One, if I really believe in the Declaration of Independence, but even more as somebody who believes that everybody's created in the image of God, I have a responsibility to step out if injustice is happening. So I came because I want to hear more about it. I don't want to just receive information through white news channels, through white churches, through things like Glenn Beck. I want to hear from Glenn Beck, and I want to hear from color lines. And it's to step into that tension and expose myself to what's going on.
Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if you're the minority in the room.
And we have another question over here on Twitter.
Go ahead.
From Sean Glover. His Twitter name is Sean B. Glover. And he wants to know, can white and black pastors in our community join together to have a united voice against racism?
Can they? No. Why? You're a pastor, Pastor Dreer. Why can't they?
I mean, I think they can, but I think as African-American pastors, we don't come together. So if we can't come together as African-American pastors because we comparing churches, we comparing different things, and so if we can't come, I mean, look around. You ask the pastors to stand up, and I mean, you can count them on pretty much one hand. So if the African-American pastors can't come together, then we can't look. I mean, to me, sitting beside, I didn't even know he was a minister. And so that makes me feel bad because he's coming out, I mean, willing to put himself out there, and we got so many African-American pastors who aren't willing to do the same thing when it's our race. So, yeah, no, I don't think we.
Yes, sir.
I think also that fear has a lot to do with it. As a people, we're fearful of the other group. Everyone's always fearful of something that's not like them. Where I work, I'm the only African American. I'm the only black person that works there, and I'm the only black person that's ever worked there since 1928. So when all this first started happening, honestly, I did my very best not to say anything about it. But then I realized, and as my pastor said, I had to encourage myself. If I don't talk to these people about this, they're never going to know anything different. If I don't explain to them that, hey, maybe that wasn't the right way to handle things. Maybe the investigation wasn't as fair as it seemed. Maybe he didn't deserve to die. If you don't raise these issues first with ourselves, because we've been talking about this since last year. Right. How many of us have actually stepped out to a white person at our job or to a white person on our Twitter feed or somebody that we know or even somebody that we don't know and say, hey, let's talk about this. Why do you think it's like this?
Constructive conversation.
I think that Jeffrey,
we don't have constructive conversation. Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to something I think that we're missing. We have to go through a healing process first. I think that's the core of it, that even though we can focus on Mike Brown, you have, and this is coming from me, because I focus on women empowerment. You have women, we have to learn how to trust first. And that's the thing. You have to heal because we've lost our black men. And the thing is, our black men are supposed to be, I call them James Evans. You know, I love me some James Evans. And we don't see that anymore. So when you have women, you know, you can be James Evans any day. But when you don't see that anymore, you see women taking on the role of men, you know, it's hard to kind of trust each other now. It's hard to kind of trust men with your children now. So now it's all about healing. And first of all, as women, we have to know how to come together. And that's one thing that, you know, I've had the advantage of doing and the opportunity of doing is coming together and bringing us together to heal ourselves first before we can do anything else.
What are we healing? What are we healing from? You said we need healing. What are we healing from?
I think we're healing from the issues of, like I said, the lack of trust, the not having, because most of our black men, and those are facts, are in jail, or, you know, they're living in this.
Are most of them in jail, or is this what the society is showing us?
Well,
are they really all in jail?
Well, I think
that's the question.
I think majority of them, a lot of them are, because the jails in South Carolina are built, and the laws are built to house them. So, I mean, if you go back and you look, and this is statistics here, and these are numbers, you have more in jail than you have in college now.
We, as African Americans, especially African American men, need to accept accountability. I came from a single parent home. I'm not going to use that as a crutch. You know, I came from North Main Street, Columbia, and I go into schools and I tell those young men, listen, I sat in the same seat that you sat in. Do not let the world tell you because you came from a single parent home or because you came from North Main Street like I did that you can't own your own business at 32 like I did. So I am tired of African Americans using excuses. The system is not always your problem. We need to accept what we do. We need to teach our African American men the posture they need to take when police approach.
That was brought up. Let me stop right there real quick. When we talk about Mike, let's go back to Mike Brown. So we saw the video when the stepfather, when we talk about posture and demeanor and decorum. So when the stepfather got up on top of the car, because this brought up, because remember, a lot of times I say that we put ourselves in some of these situations. So do you remember the video when the stepfather got up on top of the car? And he was, of course, he was in his hurt. He was in his despair. So the things that he said, I didn't really too much have an issue with because I understand it was coming out of a place of hurt. But his pants were sagging below his waist. And it gave them a reason to say, you know what? Look at them. This is how they act. And they generalize it to black men and to black people. Do we bring it on ourselves? Go back to you, Brian.
Let me say this. Another thing about the media, they said that they wanted to give that verdict at night. It was a reason for that. They wanted to do it when businesses were closed because they knew what we would do. We have to think beyond our emotions.
What will we do?
Loot, burn down a car lot of a man who is a civic leader in the community. You know, so we have to be more informed. We have
Were we wrong for that?
Absolutely.
No, listen, we're having conversation. Don't stop me. We're just talking.
But this is the other thing. I think this is something that America needs to ask itself. What if, hypothetically speaking, what if everything the cop said was true about Mike Brown? We don't talk about that. We just talk about we don't talk about the video that we saw prior to him being murdered. We don't talk about that. What if it was? What if he did? What if he did punch that cop? What if he did slam that door when that cop was trying to get out? What if he did? Let's talk about that. That's what we need to talk about. Now, I'm not saying I think the force was a little aggressive, but what if he was trying to get Mike off of him? Was he in his rights?
But let me ask this question. This is where I come to. we say that and we talk about the aggression of the black man, but when you are sitting there, you know that you're innocent, and a cop approaches you and they're ganging up on you and they're saying this and that, sometimes we don't know how to control our emotions. We're like, why are you doing this to me? And we become hyper or we become violent. Whose fault is it?
Let me ask this question as well, because and I can pose this to the African American men in the room. Can we honestly say that in all of these situations, the cop just came up to us and just began to harass us? It's cause and effect. We learned that in 3rd grade. There was some action to cause a reaction. In a lot of cases, I'm not saying all of it.
Not all of them.
Not all of it, but I'm saying in a lot of, again, in this particular case, what if what he said was true?
What if it was true?
Was he within his rights? I mean, I'm just being. We have to stop saying that they are against us or this or that. We have to be logical, and we have to a lot of times stop thinking with our emotions.
I'm going to challenge y'all one more time. You said stop thinking with our emotions, but I'm going to challenge all of you one more time, because you told me that the looting was wrong, that they were wrong for looting. They should not have burned these businesses down. This is what you said. But they waited and trusted the system that was supposed to protect them. The system failed. Now you're telling me that they're wrong. We're just talking. We're just talking.
But the law says you can't go into somebody's place and it's locked.
But the law is also supposed to protect me.
But again, you know the law. The law says that you cannot break into somebody's place.
I hear conversation in the audience.
But also, Jeffrey, what we cannot do is have knee-jerk reaction to a systematic oppression. If it's systematic, it takes a systematic solution.
Okay.
If it's a systematic problem, it requires a systematic solution. What we're looking at is that they tore down their whole community looking for a response overnight.
And most of the people who did that did not live in Ferguson.
Yeah. But listen, whether it was Ferguson, and you had some people in Ferguson who were trying to protect their own, and we give credit to those people. But what we need to give credit to is that if we're going to literally try to make some change, it must come systematically, which means.
Here we go.
Go ahead.
Let me ask this. So systematically, and I know we got in the back, systematically, how do we do that? Bless you, Kimmy Ellison, you look good. What do we do? How do we do this systematically? But before we go there, real quick.
I just want to add a comment about what he said. We should teach our kids to conform when the police approach you. Why should I have to conform because you're approaching me? Long as I'm being myself, I shouldn't have to conform to the police.
Well, in most cases, you're not really being yourself.
Everybody get up. Say what? Everybody get up. Come on.
Motivation, inspiration, educated new revelation.
Entertainment just for you. Smile and laugh, 'cause God loves you.
Jeffrey Lampkin.
Somebody turn the lamp on.